Hello and welcome back to Eragon Chapter Reactions created by Blue Moon Stories. Okay, so first we have our agenda, or what we'll be going over. So we have Chapter 1, Discovery. Chapter 2, Palancar Valley. Chapter 3, Dragon Tales. Chapter 4, Fate's Gift. And Chapter 5, Awakening. This is going to be pretty long in section 2. So first we have our introduction. Please ignore these things up here. So, introduction. This will contain spoilers. For those of you who do not want spoilers, please do not watch this. This will be analytical and spoilers will be riddled throughout all of this. Okay. Now, we are going to go over Discovery. So, I was kind of wondering, who is this person named Eragon and why is he here? You're like, what? Why are we not getting back to the Shade or the Elf from the prologue? But later on you realize that he ends up being the main character. So right now you know that Eragon is hunting for his family and it is somewhere in the winter time in what is called the Spine. I mean, I guess I probably could have put a map up there, but I don't know. Well, he's hunting in the Spine, which is a range of untamed mountains that extended up and down the land of Exalia. I think I said that right. Exalia is the country, or place at which they live. The continent, I guess. And then they say, strange tales and men often come from those mountains, usually boding ill. Despite that, Eragon did not fear the Spine. He was the only hunter near Kabahal, the village that he kind of lives in, but sort of like on the outskirts. Who dare track game deep into the craggy recesses. And he's on the third night of his hunt, which means that his food is already half gone. So that means he have to catch this limp doe. Well, now we can read this part. Eragon crept slowly closer, keeping the bow ready. All his work of the past 3 days led to this moment. He took a last steady breath, and an explosion shattered the night. The herd bolted. Eragon lunged forward, racing through the grass as a fiery wind surged past his cheek. He slid to a stop and loosed an arrow at the bounding doe. It missed by a finger's breadth. Sorry, I lost my place. And hissed into the darkness. He cursed and spun around, instinctively knocking another arrow. Behind him, where the deer had been, smoldered a large circle of grass and trees. Many of the pines stood bare of their needles. The grass outside was charring with flatness. A wisp of smoke curled in the air, carrying a burnt smell. In the center of the blast radius lay a polished blue stone. Mist snaked across the scorched area and swirled tendrils over the stone. Eragon watched for danger for several long minutes, but the only thing that moved was mist. Cautiously he released the tension from the bow and moved forward. Moonlight cast him in a pale shadow and stopped before the stone. He nudged it with an arrow, then jumped back. Nothing happened, so he warily picked it up. Nature had never polished a stone as smooth as this one. Its flawless surface was dark blue except for thin veins of white that spider-webbed across it. The stone was cool and frictionless under his fingers, like hardened silk. The oval was about 1 foot long, and it weighed several pounds. Okay, that's all you need to hear for that. So, from this point, you can think that, okay, this stone seems similar to what was described as what the elf was carrying in her pouch in the prologue, that she made poof in sapphire. It's a sapphire stone. So you would assume that it's the same stone, right? Right. And you assume that this boy is apparently the main character. This boy Eragon is the main character. Okay, so you move on now to Palancar Valley. But hold on. Eragon. It weighed several pounds, though it felt lighter than it should have. Eragon found the stone both beautiful and frightening. Now his thoughts are, where did it come from, and does it have a purpose? Then a more disturbing thought came to him. Was it sent here by accident, or am I meant to have it? This story will end up being answered, I assume, far later in the story. It might be better to leave it behind. A flicker of indecision ran through him, and he almost dropped it. But something stayed in his hand. At the very least, it might pay for some food. He decided with a shrug, took the stone to his pocket. Okay. So you took a oval about a foot long into your pocket? I'm sorry. That's just strange to me. Anyways. The glen was too exposed to make a safe camp, so he slid back into the forest and spread a bedroll beneath an upturned root of a fallen tree. After a cold dinner bread and cheese, he fell asleep and pondered what had occurred. Alright, so that was Discovery. My reaction to Discovery was, okay, so this had to have happened just after the elf magically made the thing poof. What she had, the stone in her pouch poof. And now this boy named Eragon now has the stone. So, wow. How interesting was that? Alright. Now we move on to the next chapter, which is Palancar Valley. The sun rose early the next morning with a glorious camouflage of pink and yellow. The air was fresh, sweet, and very cold. Ice edged the streams, and small ponds were completely frozen over. After breakfast of porridge, Eragon returned to the glen and examined the charred area. The morning light revealed no new details, so he started home. So we know that this is now the next morning. And we also know that the first paragraph is simply to describe how the morning is to you. Okay. Then Eragon seems to be able to follow a rough game trail. Faintly worn and in places non-existent because it had been forged by animals, it often backtracked and took long detours, yet for all its flaws, it was still the fastest way out of the mountains. These mountains are the Spine. Now we get a intro to the Spine. The Spine is one of the places that King Garbalox could not call his own. Stories were still told about how half of his army disappeared after marching into the ancient forest. A cloud of mist flourishing and bad luck seemed to hang over it. Though the trees grew tall and the sun shone brightly, few people could stay in the Spine long enough without suffering an accident. Eragon was one of those few, not through any particular gift, it seemed to him, but through the persistent vigilance and sharp reflexes. He had hiked in the mountains for years, yet he was still wary of them. Every time he thought they had surrendered their secrets, something happened to upset his understanding of them, like the stone's appearance. He kept a brisk pace, and leagues steadily disappeared, so we know that he's heading home. And now you know that by late evening he arrived at a ravine. It's called the Royal River that rushed below, heading to Palancar Valley. Okay. And it gorged hundreds of tiny streams. So, Palancar Valley. Oh, please ignore this one right here. I forgot to take that out and put a picture of, awesomeness there. Anyways, please ignore that. And anyways, so you know that he is camped at a thicket near the ravine in a place called Palancar Valley. So it grows colder over the next day and a half, so the pace is moving very quickly now. First it was simply a day, then it was a day and a night, and half a day. And a bit past noon he heard Engelda Falls, blanketing everything with a dull sound of thunderous splashes. The trail led him to a moist slate outcropping, which the river sped past, feeding itself into empty air and down mossy cliffs. Before him lay Palancar Valley, exposed like an unrolled map. The base of Engelda Falls, more than half a mile below, and the northwest point of the valley. A little ways from the falls was Carva Hall, a cluster of brown buildings. So, Carva Hall is apparently the place where he lives? Is that what I'm getting at? Um, White smoke rose from the chimney, so we all know that these first few pages are specifically moving the story forward and giving you an idea of everywhere where he's going. So we know that Eragon does end up coming here. Eragon heard men talking loudly in the evening air while wives scurried to fetch their husbands, scolding them for being late. Eragon wove his way between the houses to the butcher's shop, a broad, thick-beamed building. Overhead the chimney bleached black smoke. He pushed the door open. A suspicious room was warm and well lit by a fire stabbed by a stone fireplace. A bare counter stretched across the far side of the room. So we assume that this is, because it's the butcher shop, this is where Eragon is going to try to steal the stone to buy meat, which we heard of in the first chapter, Discovery. Some of the mouth twitched as Eragon entered. Should I do a voice for this? Well, the mighty hunter joins the rest of us mortals. How many did you bag this time? None. Eragon was Eragon's curt reply. He never liked Sloan. The butcher always treated him with disdain as if he was unclean. Widower Sloan seemed to care only for one person, his daughter Katerina, on whom he doted. I am amazed, said Sloan, with affected astonishment. He turned his back to Eragon to scrape something off the wall. And what's your reason for coming here? Yes, Eragon admitted uncomfortably. If that's the case, let's see your money. Sloan tapped his fingers, and Eragon shifted his feet and remained silent. Come on, either you have it or you don't. Which is it? I don't have any money, but I do. What? No money? The butcher cut him off sharply. And you expect to buy meat? Are the other merchants giving away their wares? Should I hand you goods without charge? Besides, he said abruptly, it's late. Come back tomorrow with money. I'm close for the day. Okay, so we're going to assume that this guy named Sloan is, for the moment, our main antagonist. Someone who's trying to keep Eragon from getting meat to his family. And later, Eragon seems to show Sloan the stone, but when he says that it's from the spine, Sloan gets extremely upset. But Eragon's has nothing else he can pay with. And thankfully, Katerina, a tall girl of 16, trailed behind him as in Horst, a hulking man. And he apparently, you find out later, a few sentences later, that he's a blacksmith. And Eragon says that he tried to pay Sloan with a stone, and that when he told Sloan it was from the spine, he refused to even touch it. What difference does it make where it came from? And a host turned his attention to the butcher. Why don't you trade with him, Sloan? I have no love for the spine myself, but it's a question. Then if it's a question of the stone's worth, I'll pay it back with my own money. And well, there's an argument between Sloan and his daughter, and then there's Eragon, who apparently gets his meat thanks to Horst, the blacksmith. And later, Horst pays for it, but Eragon, and he says that he'll be able to work off his debt, says Horst's son, Arabech, is going to be going away. Eragon will be able to, work in the forge as payment. Yes, said Eragon, and he explained. As he gets home, right? It's a, oh. And you notice that, hold on. I didn't accept any charity. Eragon snapped. Hold on, go back up. Uncle, it's Eragon, let me in. The small shutter slid back, and the second the door swung open, Garrow stood there, his hand on the door. Rowan's sleeping. Roran, I guess. Eragon pulled off the pack, and he explained his situation, and apparently Garrow does not like this. No, host bought it for us after Eragon said. And he said, you let him pay for it. I told you before, I won't beg for our food. Okay, so we assume that he does not like Eragon allowing host to pay for food, but, he has debt that he can work off. Thankfully, to ease his uncle's anger. that is all for now. I have reached my 15 set minute limit. I will see you all in the next video.